Hello, hello, welcome back. This is Frantz Kantor, cartoonist, illustrator, teacher, tinker, tailor, spy, all of that stuff. Today, we've got a little bit of a special assignment, a little special project I'm working on. I'm actually doing a caricature of one of my childhood heroes, Shintaro the Samurai. And believe me, 1965, this guy was, he was very big. This is him recently thanking you can watch this on YouTube probably, thanking the people of Australia and to always remember Shintaro. This is Tombay the Mist, his offsider. He was like a sidekick, very funny guy, always smiling, cracking jokes. This is him with a bunch of extras. The extras don't look very happy, do they? Because you know what happens to extras in samurai films, samurai shows, they get killed. So they're not very happy, the men of Iga. They should have unionized long before this. So the Samurai was starred Koichi Ose, 17th century Japan. And his trusted companion Tombay the Mist, who's Fukichimaki, and battling enemies like the evil Koga Ninja and the Fuma Ninja. This was swap cards. These were Scanlan's bubblegum cards that they came out with, I think, 72 cards and a 00, which was the color chase card, which was very, very hard to get. So they told a little bit of the story based on the show. The show went for like 5 years in Japan. It wasn't called Shintaro, of course. It was called something else. And it was based on the success of, films like The Blind Zatoichi, The Blind Samurai. So it had a lot of swordplay. This is a typical sort of pose. He became a master swordsman. He actually became like a master of unsheathing the sword. So apparently there's a thing about unsheathing the sword. I don't know what that means. But he was very good at that, taking the sword out and putting the sword back in. Obviously faster to come out and slower to go back in. So it was like signature poses, ready to strike in a sort of a very serious pose, very serious action pose, ready for action, very serious expression. And he had these bangs that sort of, when he got in action, they sort of flipped over his face and things. And of course he had like a ponytail at the back. Okay, so this is the gang in, I think, the third series. So this is Tombay, obviously, Shintaro, and this annoying kid who every 5 minutes would go, Shintaro, Shintaro, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And of course, the Tombay would say, Shintaro, shut the kid up. This is a typical action pose. Again, when Tombay was in action, he was very, very committed, very serious. Not sure the color of these, but when they came out to Australia, they were wearing red or orange from memory. This is obviously probably the Koga Ninja, the black ninja. They wore black. So when Koichi Ose visited Sydney, he did a series of live shows, and he was absolutely mobbed. This is him today. So he's still around, still with us, great guy. So he was born in 1937, and he was a Japanese actor. He left the series, in, I think, 65, 66, something like that. He went on to another TV series. So it broke the hearts of many people. And again, like Zatoichi, the Blind Samurai, the Yojimbo character from I've forgotten his name. Anyway, it was based on that sort of genre, the lone samurai, the samurai without the Ronin, the roaming samurai, sort of working for the emperor, but pretty much roaming around the countryside. So that's what they did, a lot of walking. Zatoichi again. So what are we going to work from? I'm going to work from a picture. Let's have a look. Oh, this is him when he was mobbed in Australia. I'll tell you a little story about that. That's a close-up of one of the cards. So the black and white, obviously black and white show. Very, very, very iconic. Yeah, it was an incredible, had an incredible impact. Oh, it's the Japanese name, on Mitsu Kenshi, starring Koichi Osi, and it was, a really incredible, powerful show. This is one of the antagonists from the samurai, and what's his name? I think Bin Amatsu, who portrayed a Kongo of the Koga ninja. So they were the enemy. They were the black ninja. They were the enemy of Shintaro and the Iga ninja. Let's find our picture and let's have a look here. Yeah, we'll probably get a good shot of this. So I've done a little thumbnail sketch, and it's a bit blurry, as you can see, and there's quite a lot of mascara and makeup and eyeliner and I think false eyelashes as well, because this is 1964, so it's very theatrical use of makeup. They're very extreme, obviously it's a wig and everything, so you could see that the join between the hair and the skin isn't, you could still see the edges of the mesh. So it's a bit sort of crude theatrically, but I think, and the photograph's a little bit blurry, but I think we'll have a good go at capturing a likeness from him. We may need to refer to some of the other photos. All right, so I've done a little thumbnail sketch. I'm trying to work out. He's got this very jowly expression, and that's the thing that I want to sort of catch. And there's that death stare, that obviously staring down the opponents. So I've taken this thumbnail sketch and I've kind of imposed a bigger version, like a quick sketch, to save time. The other thing we want to think about is probably the light source. So the light's generally coming down from the top right, so you're going to have shadows that create form on the bottom left of the picture of the object. Okay, so that's something to think about while we're drawing. You don't put shadows on the wrong side, even though they may be there in the picture. Be very careful, because it changes when you start changing the reality position of lights arbitrarily. You create a false. You create a lie. No, you create something that doesn't really make sense visually. So all of these things sort of add up to create something that is less effective. So we want to try to maximize the effect here. Also, the other thing to be concerned about is the facial area itself, because even though he's quite stylized in his makeup, in his features, we're going to try to get a reasonable likeness. So we're building a relationship between the eyes, the nose and the mouth. And this is the area that obviously they occupy. There's sort of a zone, a T-zone on the head. So that's the mask area, the face area. So the relationship between all of these elements are very important to keep in mind. It's a sort of a dialogue between them. So when we look at recognizing somebody, we don't look at an overall, we have an overall impression, but we zero in on definite targets like left eye, right eye, nose and mouth. So that's how we build recognition. And that's how we're going to do it in the drawing. Okay, and this works for every drawing, probably for a dog as well. There is a relationship between a dog's elements on a dog's face as well. All right, so well, the other thing I wanted to say very quickly is because the head's tilted, be aware that you've got now a tilted reference. Okay, so what happens in drawing, sometimes the brain accidentally straightens diagonals accidentally. Okay, it's the difference between the so-called right brain and left brain. So the left brain kind of creates symbols that are all about symbolizing, simplifying the process, which is very valuable. But we also need to create a believable sense of proportion and perspective, and that's helped by the imposition of invisible lines. If you wish to put in crosshairs, where the center of the face is, and where the eyes would be, say, for example, center of the head, by all means do that, but there's just extra lines to rub out in the end. However, being aware of this propensity for the brain to overcorrect things should be enough to help offset this problem. Okay? So, let's push on. So, he was amazing. This show was incredibly impactful when I was a kid. 1966. 65, I believe it came out here. I can't remember it that early, but definitely 66 onwards, in reruns. I would have definitely seen them. And he came out here, I think, in 65, so I was very, very young. It was always like a... it's kind of a blur. I remember it kind of, sort of. It was a lot of noise, 90-minute show, which is quite short, I think, but there's a lot of action, a lot of sword play, and it was at the in Sydney in the festival arena. I think it was the Hordern Pavilion, where they used to have wrestling. So I was in a wrestling ring, and I remember my mother took me and my sister to see them. We got free tickets because we had a Japanese student living with us for a few years, and he treated us to Shintaro because he knew how much I don't think my sister watched the show very regularly, but I was obsessed with Shintaro, and he knew that and got us tickets through the embassy, and that was good. And we got not great seats, but fairly good seats, I think. We could see all of the action. We didn't sit behind a post or anything. We got a good view, I think, from memory. And it was a lot of action, a lot of explosions, and smoke bombs and things like that. Throw down smoke bombs, and the pavilion, or the ring was really smoky by the end of it. And my mother, who took us, wasn't really, was like, she didn't really appreciate the samurai, the pop culture phenomenon, until the end, when we were lining up to see him in his motorcade pull out from the backstage. And we were there, and my mother jumped on top of my sister, squashed her hat. She had a sun hat for the occasion, just leapt on top of her and grabbed the samurai, grabbed Shintaro, his hand, as he was like, patting everybody's heads, I think, or high-fiving or whatever he did. It was like, whoa, that was like a shock. It happened so quickly, the security didn't even react. They just said, oh, oh, okay, well, she's over now. She's let him go. Okay, all good. So I guess she got sort of overcome by the action. You know, it was very incredibly exciting, the actual show, that because they had the big, you know, Japanese drums, and it just sort of made it really, really exciting to view. A lot of the action was stylized and overly rehearsed, perhaps. They didn't have the backwards jumping ninjas, because that's all like reverse footage, you know, of the film. Everybody knew that, but it was still pretty cool. I mean, we all knew how it was done. It's just obvious, you know, but it's still pretty cool to see it. And with the Japanese music, you know, the high staccato, the sticks, the whacking, the it's a technical musical term. It's called the whacking of the sticks, and kind of like you know, Aboriginal music in a way, that rhythmic, but the beat gets faster with the, you know, the advent of action, the input of action, the excitement. So yeah, it was a very interesting show. I think it took everybody by surprise, because, you know, we were so used to seeing things like westerns or police dramas, like you know, Homicide or something like that, Division 4 or Z Cars or things like that on TV. And this really, the kids in Australia went absolutely berserk with this. I'd never seen anything like this before. Because, you know, the samurais are kind of, it's sort of like a western in a way, because it's got some of the best of the western, I guess, messages, you know, the good guy, the lone wolf, the good guy, trying to protect the innocent, you know, the kids, except for that annoying kid. He should be not be protected. Shintaro, shut up, kid. Why are we going around the town, Shintaro? Why aren't we going into town? Tombe owes them too much money. So it was fascinating times, I think. And there was legends of kids getting hurt by grappling hooks and swords in the street, and there was blood in the street those days. Definitely. I think they had, I never had jam tins, but there were people would say they cut out, you know, with a pair of scissors, jam tin lids, and use them as star knives to throw at other kids. And of course, a few cuts and bruises and blinded eyes later. You know, they thought that this is not a good thing. So they frowned on that sort of behavior. And they said, you know, why can't you just go back to shooting people in the street like cowboys and Indians? But no, things got worse after that, because then they brought out, I think 68, they brought out Phantom Agents, which were, again, kids with star knives. This time they had guns instead of swords. Jumping backwards up trees and things like that. So the love affair with Japanese television continued, and you know, I was a big fan of obviously Astro Boy and all of the Japanese, loved Japanese food, loved Japanese culture, was very big for us. It's kind of fitted our Australian sensibilities, really. When you think about it, you know, the sushi and which is fresh fish and things like that. So it was a very it made sense. If you ever had, I don't know where you're watching this from, but if growing up in Australia, one of the things you look forward to, and then when it's here you dread, is the summer. And it's like, you know, you look forward to it all winter, and then when it comes, it's like, oh, it's so hot, you know. And that's like Christmas, for example. Having a hot meal just puts everybody to sleep. Sorry, I'm just trying to see what I'm looking at. I'm not intentionally being sullen here, but I'm trying to get the shape of the ear from this sort of out of focus, grainy cover of TV Week. I had this cover for years because, you know, I collected the cards and I could never get the color card. But it's the same as the TV Week cover, and the TV Weeks in those days were this big, you know, they're pocket-sized. So, you know, we used to get TV Week and TV Times. TV Times was a bigger one, and, you know, they had pin-ups of your favorite stars, like Lost in Space or, you know, whatever. This was a big deal for kids. You know, I'm sure in America we never got those beautiful illustrated covers. We were cheated. The TV, what do they call it? Not TV Week, TV Guide or something. I don't know. The covers that they used to do, illustrated with Jack Davis. We never got those. Wish we did. They would have been, you know, instant collector's items. So the printing was, you know, in those days, color printing was very sort of dodgy, wasn't the best, out of registration most of the time. But the Samurai cover was an instant collector's item, because it's such. That's it. That's the cover. This is from the Samurai cover. This is from that the chase card, or what you call it, the collector card of the 00 of the bubblegum card series. So it was a fantastic show, and I'd never seen, obviously I was a kid, I'd never seen any, you know, Zatoichi or Yojimbo or anybody, so I had no idea who Akira Kurosawa was. I was just too young. But TV, luckily, we had the Samurai, and, you know, and in many ways, I guess that was our version of the Seven Samurai. That's what we got. So let's try to get some knuckles happening here. So the grip on the sword, I've just got his little hand here. I'm just trying to put a little bit of a sword in the picture, I thought, to fill up that space, because I'm using this device, this window, this sort of a framing device, and I want to have it sort of a three-dimensional approach, obviously with things popping out of it, but I need to imply like negative space, which is the space around the object that I'm drawing, which gives it a sense of composition, and importance and a hierarchy, like a spatial hierarchy as well. So what do I mean by that? I mean that things are close to the camera, like his bangs, his nose, or whatever. Things that hang over the edge of the frame, and then other things that recede back into the frame. Let's get some more, few details happening in his kimono. So we lived with Japanese students, as I said, and he would give us presents from Japan, kimonos and fans and all kinds of things. In '64 he gave us memorabilia from the Tokyo Olympics and things like that. So I even could speak a little bit of Japanese when I was very, very young. Of course I can't do it anymore. Way out of practice. It was beautiful. It's beautiful to be exposed to other people, other cultures. It's a very rewarding experience. All right, so let's go. Now, obviously, his eyes are dark brown and very reflective, so we've got to obey the contrasts of the drawing. So let's do the right thing and do the darkest elements first. So that would be his eyeliner and the eyelashes, false eyelashes, I think, which they put in. It was like opera or stagecraft, to make the eyes stand out, obviously. So the makeup is very stylized for black and white television. It's not very realistic skin tones or details. They're quite stylized. So you can't see a lot of the iris here, so I'll just sort of make it dark enough for me to put in the right amount of shine. So whether you see them or not, of course, you've got irises and pupils. So depending on the lighting, how well they're defined, but generally you've got to pay attention to the anatomy that you're drawing, not just what you see, but also match it to what you should be seeing, what you know to be there. Okay, so it's like a balancing act between what you see and what you can't see but should see, if that makes at all any sense. I have drawn Shintaro before, I think last year, but I wasn't happy with the result. It didn't sort of have a typical pose or expression. I think I made him too friendly looking. This is a typical Shintaro expression that we're building here. So there's a highlight above the lids here, so we're going to be careful about how much brown pencil we put in there. So all eyebrows, including falsies, if they're falsies, from theatrical devices, fake eyebrows, whatever. They all have to be. You have to obey the laws of how hair grows. Hair has a direction. Look at eyebrows closely; they all have a direction. They're not just one directional, are they? There's hairs that build up and then hairs that come down to create let's do something like this. So there's hairs going this way, and then there's hairs coming down, and then they meet up here and they create this sort of line sometimes. Okay, so something to think about, isn't it? There's a lot of things you think about when you're drawing, and I always say, you know, don't be overwhelmed by it. Like, it's not something like a shopping list that you go through a list of things to do, and you go through all the list and bang, you've got a successful drawing. It's not like that. It's more a case of being aware of things as you're drawing, because the pencil, what you're doing is building, it's sort of a dialogue of lines that describe many different things: form, structure, light and shade, space, contour, which are like lines, outlines, many different things that you're describing with a pencil. And that's a very special thing. So, you know, try not to limit the ability of the pencil to find a sense of relevance, a sense of truth in the subject that you're drawing. Quite like these eyes. They're very intense, aren't they? We're going to increase that, of course, we're going to get some black ink in a second and help that out even more. So just want to get some shadow, and there will help with the drama of the hair, I think. Have to be careful, you know, drawing over pencil lines. I know it's tempting not to start. Just start anywhere, and you know, eventually you drag your hand across the drawing and you move pigment, or you smudge it too much. So it's good to have something to lean on, so it doesn't happen as readily. Wow, this is didn't realise there's a lot of hair I've got to draw here. A lot of hair. Thankfully, pencils handle hair quite well. I am going to come in here with a black pen and thicken some of these lines and make them more stronger. I think that would work better for the drawing. Actually, I might wonder what would happen if I put the brush pen, use the brush pen now. Might see. Let's try it. See what happens. So this is the Zig brush pen. The ink is in the handle, and you squeeze it out, and it should come out. Should come out. Doesn't always come out. So maybe changes the, you know, it becomes more of a multimedia rather than strictly a pencil drawing. But I'm very interested in the contrast or the drama achieved with this black hair, and the, you know, the shine over the top of the head, etc. So I think it's very important to maybe, and plus it'll save a little bit of time, I think, for the pencil work. So again, you know, a lot of mascara here, but be very careful of changing the structure of the eye. Always think of the eye. So it's not just what you see, it's what you can't see, but know that should be there somehow. Yeah, I think that's nice and strong. Might just play with the outlines here. Make them more stronger, including that one. I usually don't go with the ink this early, but his hair is undeniably strong and black, so I think it's fairly safe to, to start with the black ink early. Could be wrong, of course. I could stuff it up. But, I'm learning as I go. You always learn. There's nothing you can't improve on over time. Alright, so I've worked that out. I think that works quite nicely. We're going to have a bit of problem with this though, I think. So I really loved the Samurai growing up. I don't know if I've seen every single episode, but so I don't know whether stories in my imagination, my memory is kind of foggy because I was very young. I can't remember if any of the stories finished to my satisfaction. It's always the case, I think, memory. They weren't complete episodes, like 1 or 2 episodes. They kind of strung on to, continuations. And then they'd have new assignments or something. I don't remember seeing their boss. But I just had an impression that they were on a secret mission to stop the Koga Ninja from taking over. And of course, the Koga Ninja would be in the forests. So that it's always like, well, we've got to go to the next town. Let's take a shortcut through the forest. But Shintaro, the forest is full of Koga Ninja. Oh, I'm sure we'll get through. We won't. Don't worry so much. So it was a definite, occurrence. Obviously, the trees would suddenly come alive, and with ninja, and the star knives had that sort of metallic ring to them, and they hit the trees next to your face. So, never seen anything like that before. Not many people had seen Seven Samurai. Not many people had seen Yojimbo or Zatoichi or anything. So This is way before anime films, I think, too. I can't remember. I don't think there were any Japanese anime films at that time. I think it was too early. You know, it's like the stuff that we had from Japan was like Gigantor or Astro Boy, which is very limited animation. I mean, they're great, don't get me wrong, they're very enjoyable, but they work pretty simple. Humble, I guess. Have I made that too dark? I probably have. So let's knock it back a bit. And then we'll hit it with some warm tones here. That's probably better. Trying to meet the grey paper a little bit, push it a little bit, but use a lot of the grey paper to tackle the form. So I'm also be using a white pencil soon, but let me get back to the detailing here. So we've got a shadow area, and we've got so a lot of this the wig here has got a very distinctive zigzaggy pattern. They had a stylized movement. The action scenes were, a flurry of exciting action, very quick action, too fast to see. And then there'd be stills. There'd be like, not stills, but holds. In animation, you describe it as a hold. And what happens is it gives you an ability to freeze frame the end of the action. So the beginning and the end of the action were very, very stilted, very still, and that gave you a beautiful ability to over-dramatize the action. So it was a magical thing to happen. It's a little animation trick, but probably a corny way of staging, but worked brilliantly. You don't often see that in films. And some, to their credit, the American westerns, spaghetti westerns in particular, like the Sergio Leone films, it's Clint Eastwood, they would use some of that stylized narrative in their films. So, the bad guy, like if you had a gunfight or something, the person shot wouldn't immediately fall down. There'd be a delay, and that sort of heightens the tension of the action. So it's to an impossible degree. So it's very unrealistic, but reads beautifully and extends that scene, extends the action. So you're still not quite sure until the character falls. You're not quite sure who's actually been shot. So there's a little bit of ambiguity in the effect of it. And he had obviously a very Shintaro had an incredible sword style, and more than the ninjas. The ninjas always had their swords at the ready, but he drew his sword. It was like a beautiful flourish. I think that's what he became a master of. In the end, when he left the show, he became a master of that art, of the unsheathing the samurai sword with a flourish. So, you know, it just looked like, whoa, he knows his shit type of thing, you know. Don't mess with Shintaro. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about the television in that era. We kind of spoiled in many ways back then. I know we've got ultimate choices now, but you know, back then we didn't really have a lot, but we had what we had was bloody good. You know, and some of the best, like Outer Limits or Twilight Zone or something, were written by some of the, you know, Robert Bloch, who wrote I Am Legend and things. So we had TV shows that that were pretty good. And it's a bit annoying, really, that they went through such difficulty in cancellations and all this stuff, the shenanigans that studios go through, because it's ultimately they own it. They dictate what we watch in many ways. So, you know, we're not free to. It's not free to air. They have a say in our taste, whether we like it or not. TV programmers. I was wondering if we had the internet back then. Of course, it would have. You'd get a country of Shintaro. It would be so big, you know. It would have its own population. So, you know, something that I guess would not surprise many people today. But it had the ability to, it was something that caught our imagination. And it was exciting to see it, you know. So we had a lot of good times. Then were good days. Carefree days. Well, for us anyway, we didn't go to war. We were just kids. I think I might try to. Ooh, careful. I'm trying to start to draw straight lines. I just want to help out the contours, the outlines of this hand, just to have it stand out a little bit more. Be good. All right, that'll do. All right, so we've got the brown, we've got the black, and now we're going to go with some white. Before we do that, let's set a contrast. So if you go back to the eyes, remember they're very reflective of the studio lights. So we need to put those in there and try to make them comparatively the same, referring to the same light source. Slowly build up some relevant contrasts here and there. We'll be using the white pencil in a sec. I just want to establish a little bit of a few highlights here and there that we might work up to. I think would be good. Also, I think we might try to get a reflected light into the shadow area. That would be good. This is a paint pen, sort of activated by pumping and shaking the ball bearing inside to mix the pigment. Good, I think it's nice. I'm looking at the photograph and thinking, where is the lightest zones here that we could play with a little bit. That'll do. I might actually, while I'm here, fix this logo. So I'm leaving the kimono. What else can I do? We'll just build it up slowly with a white pencil. You've got to be careful with a white pencil, of course, because this is a Prismacolor. It's very soft, very great pigment. Very strong, you can go over pencil lines quite well, it's got good coverage, pigment's quite stable, but it is quite soft, so it has a tendency to break. So some gentleness and awareness of what might happen, so don't press too hard, I think is the order of the day. Take it easy, slow down.
Take it easy, guy. Slow down.
So, Shintaro's Japanese, a Japanese show, and the adventures were typical of, I think, cowboy films where you have sidekicks and kids involved in the film. They would often get into trouble, and then Shintaro, or the good guy, would have to rescue them. So they get kidnapped by the bad guys, and trouble would ensue, and so forth. So it was a typical sort of trope in that sense. To build up some highlights here. So what I'm trying to do here is build up a little bit of the texture of the skin. It's obviously got a shinier forehead up this part. There is it's not a strong crease as I've done here, but I think I got an impression that there's a line, a faint one, and I've sort of exaggerated perhaps, out of all proportion perhaps, but I don't know. It kind of looks all right. Gives a bit of, a little bit of detail into the forehead area. His nose is quite small, I think, or it's got a bulb at the end. It's quite a nice shaped nose, really. Sort of a perfect shape for a nose, for a schnozola. Nice shape. Very dramatic. They use a lot of makeup to enhance the eyes, to get that death stare. They've done a really good job here. It's very, very, very stylized look. So he's got some bags under his eyes, which are kind of important to create, and he's got these little cheeks which are quite high up next to the cheekbones. The cheekbones are here. Let's put the highlights in there, even though the highlights may not be as strong in the photograph. They should be there because they touch the skin. These things touch the skin, and the head touches the skin, so they're sharp. You can see them there. So it's always a good idea to remember about the anatomy of the face that you're drawing, right? So keep thinking of that, because, you know, if you draw something that is too close to the photograph, so-called photographically, it tends not to look very good, not to look very realistic. You think, well, I drew very close to the photograph, why does it not look very realistic? It's because when you're drawing, you're actually drawing things that are not in the photograph. They should be in the photograph, but they're not. So photographs don't always tell you the whole picture. And that, my friends, is why portraits are a thing over photographs. There's a narrative in the drawing that the photograph can't capture. There's a lot of things, anatomical things, essays on light and shade, essays on texture, the texture of the skin, the drama, composition. There are a lot of things that a photograph is a sort of alluding to several things that drawing implicitly has. So, it's a essay on characterization and a study of light and shade and form. A photograph mostly, not always, mostly, doesn't have that ability to capture. There are rare exceptions, of course. I mean, photography is very old. It's it's way older than 150, I think. So it's a long, long time. All right. What are we going to do? Let's get. This is a paint pen again, but this time it's a brush version. So this is it's not very good. So I'm just trying to activate the brush a bit more so you get a bit of flexibility. It's going to be quite opaque, but because it's a brush, it's flexible. So give us a thick and thin. Effect. Increase the drama of the eyes a little bit here. That works so well. That's good, I like that. Maybe help with the cheeks. Tiny bit here and there. All right, so I think we're getting very close to the end. So what I might do is let's try to switch pens. Use another white pen, thicker point, and we're going to. I'm going to lean on this. It's scary. I'm going to colour the background, put in a sort of a lighter texture to help punch the foreground elements out, figure, the face. So I'm essentially colouring the negative space around Shintaro so we can get more contrast. So drawing is about capturing or describing, basically not capturing, you're describing form. You're describing line, form, tone, shape. They're called 7 elements. So texture, color. We're using color because it's the red of the pencil, the brown pencil, kind of approximates a warm tone that makes us think of flesh, right? So that's why a lot of artists have used the 3 color pencil drawing method for drawing, because essentially it's a drawing, but it has a lot more information than a pencil drawing on white paper. So the tone paper kind of allows you, kind of meets you halfway in the tonal range. And then all you have to do is use the pencils, the black and the white and the brown, to create a sense of form and a tonal variety. So ultimately, I don't want to colour this in all over, fill it out completely, but I just want to lighten the effects. I'm using a sort of a hatch line type of thing for the background. Also, I forgot to draw the shine on the sword, which I've got to do. Luckily, this paint pen dries quite quickly. Let's try to get this in now. Kind of looks like a broadsword now with that that line in the center. Okay, all right. Let's continue on. I think nearly there. Might switch to a smaller pen. They come in a variety of pen thicknesses, which is kind of really handy. There's a smaller one still. It's a number 1, which is a 0.9 millimeters. I know I've shut up because I have to spell while I go. Which you do. No, it's just me. I would say we all have that problem. No, we don't. It's just me. I can't. I'm so used to being visual that I have to read things out in my head. Otherwise, I'm likely to get a spelling mistake. So I'm really too visual, I think, for my own good. You can see how you can build up the light with a simple white pencil on grey paper. And it's quite nice. It's giving it a nice sense of shine. While I've got the light coming in directly over there, I might sort of complement it a little bit more just before we go. I don't have to do this, but I just thought it might be more make more sense. So because the light's bouncing back on that side of the face, it kind of makes sense to have it reference a little bit on the nose, because the nose sort of has to be there. Has to be referenced. It has to be hit by the light There you go. English number 1. How's that? All right, I think that's enough. Very dramatic. I like it. Does it look like him a little bit? I might have, if I made his eyes perhaps too light, that might be less effective. Maybe I should darken them. I might try to do that. For that purpose, though, I might try a thinner brush. Just bear with me 1 second. Make sure that there is no iris visible. Yeah, makes it more intense. Okay, well, let's go. Here we go. This is Shintaro and Tombei and what's his name? Koichi Ose. Koichi Ose is Shintaro, and this is Shintaro, and this is Shintaro, and this is Frantz Kantor, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.